Okay, good morning, everyone. With them, we will be starting Brachot today, and I wanted to just preface with a couple of things. These couple of things were some notes that I was thinking about this morning as follows. Number one, when I was getting married, both my father and Rabbi Zucker, who passed away last year, said the same idea. And the idea was that you don't get married for a lifetime. Marriage is not forever. That might sound horrifying, but that wasn't what they were trying to say. What they were trying to say is that for some people, making a decision that will last a lifetime, to make such a decision is impossible. So how do you make a decision? If you're a person that can't make decisions of a lifetime because you're not smart enough, so what you do is you make a decision for the moment. You make a decision for a week. Can you be married to this woman for a day, for a week, for a month? You think you can be married for a year? Die bazeh. And guess what? All of a sudden, you're 20 years later and you're still married. And like, wow, how did that happen? Could you have made that decision then? No. We're not making a decision today to finish Shas. We're not making a decision today to no call to cool. We're making a decision today is for today, for this week, for a month. Hopefully, we can grow and accomplish and feel good when we look back as to how far we've come. But as the Gemara tells us at the end of Sukkot and Beis about the Eitz Dahar, lost love, the Rishon look at the Eitz Dahar and they say, it was nothing. It was a little hill. It was a zero. The tzaddikim can look at it and see what a massive mountain they overcame. And they were able to nevertheless persevere and be able to accomplish. So again, we take a decision today to starting with some of the Masechus Brachos, and we'll move on. We'll figure out what exactly we're going to do after. All in good time. We're doing this as a way to hopefully be able to learn, get a seder, do it by starting the day at the right time, which means going to sleep at the right time, which gets us all this attendant benefit in life. This is the goal that we are trying with our new Seder Halimut, number one. Number two, for many of you, probably the Amud Yomi is something that you either are doing, have done, and the daf may be something that you haven't done or tried doing and did not like it. For me and for maybe some of you, the reason that the daf was not as palatable was simply this. There is a certain level of pace and of speed that one cannot necessarily always be able to do things a little bit slower and a little bit more in depth that the Amud Yomi gives. And the Amud Yomi, the way we're doing it, at 5 days a week, leaving Shabbos and Sunday for Chazar, should allow a person to be able to get hopefully a little bit more into the weeds of things and be able to actually retain the information and not merely just be running through it. Or the Magachir is doing great. He's learning a ton, but the people who are actually listening are not necessarily gaining as much. I would like to mention before we go any further that the Rambam writes in Shemona Prakim that he is not going to be reciting all the people that he has got information from. He's not going to say a davar b'shem Amar. You got to come close. There's a lot of room. You got to be right in the firing zone. There is a concept we know. You have to say a davar b'shem Amar. If you don't say a davar b'shem Amar, it's a terrible thing. Maybe even over a law. I'm not getting into any of that now. Certainly, somebody who is the Amar davar b'shem Amar is maybe says the Ram, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. In the end of Hilchos, in the beginning of Shemona Prakim, the Rambam writes differently than what he writes in Kiddush HaChodesh. In Kiddush HaChodesh, at the end, he had written he's not going to write down the names of the Mechabrim when things are so obvious. But in the beginning of Shemona Prakim, the Rambam writes that he's not going to be quoting people. That he's telling you now that he's quoting tons of people. He's just not going to give you their names, but he's letting you know. So that's his synopsis. So he doesn't actually have to quote their names. This is what the Rambam says. I'm telling you now that I will not be quoting always, but throughout, I have two svarim that have been very dear to me over the years. Aside from all the Abbas of Sherman Achrenim, and one is the Sherman son of Balacha of the rabbi that I grew up with in my shul of Shem Zalman Brown, and also the Tolas Tanoim by Miram by Rabbi Aaron Hyman from London. These are two svarim that I have very much enjoyed, and there may be times that I do say them by name. Many times, probably I'll be looking into their svarim, finding things without actually mentioning it. The next thing I wanted to point out is what is the state of what I'm going to try to do here. I would like to try to do as much of the Rashi, not just the Gemara inside, but do as many of the, if not all of the Rashis inside. And in terms of the Taisus, and we will have to pick and choose. Unfortunately, I can't do all of them inside, but my goal is to do certainly a part of them inside. So the way I envision this is as follows: in the morning, the first 5+ minutes to go over what we had done the day before, and in terms of that week to be able to build up what we have learned. That's number one. And number two, to read the Gemara Rashi, hopefully get us a basic idea of what the sugi is along the way of reading the Gemara Rashi, to talk about some of the various different Rishonim points on the sugya. And then if we have some time to top it off, to do a little bit of a sugya at the end, and to conclude with a quick word on Chumash that hopefully can do in a few seconds to a minute. That is the basic structure of how I envision the day. And the way things work nowadays, I'm told by other people who do this, you have to have nice yumim. We'll make sure to do that. Stay till the end. Don't just come the day to see him. That's too much fun. But there is, however, one aspect of seriousness of this, which is if you actually want to be successful in life in anything, it's not simply learning, but it's a business, it's family, it's in all things. The only way you can ever know that you've had success is when you go through a trial, a test. If you haven't gone through any test, whether it's personal, whether it's familial, whether it's in business, then you don't really know what they say about the going. When the tough gets going, the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? That's the line. So it's actually a good line for them. When it's going, it means they're coming, they're leaving. We'll see. In any event, what practically it means for our situation here is that Shabbos and Sunday, since we're not going to be meeting, maybe we'll do a chazar shir, whatever, we'll see. But for the moment, a person should try to take some time and to study, to review, to see what they'll be able to attain, hopefully something. And maybe we will, for fun, no grades, maybe we do some of these tests. There are so many of these tests that exist online, and maybe we do that as well. Another way to potentially enhance what we are doing and to help sustain it. There's a lot of room, David. All right. Are we all ready to rock and roll? Those were my basic beginnings. You can be right in the firing line, David. Right here, it's perfect. Okay, says the Mishnah, Me'emasai. Me'emasai Karnishma Ba'aravin, the Mishnah asks, from when are you allowed to recite the Shema in the evenings? We have to understand that we are starting out in the Masechta Brachos talking about Shema, and the basic, by that I should also mention that there is coffee, thanks to Mayor, in the kitchen. I don't know what different types there are, but if anybody enjoys that or needs it, there is available. So we're starting out the Mishnah Brachos, there is a mitzvah to recite the Shema. As you may have wondered, the Shas is divided up into 6 Siddharim, right? The ones that we know are Nashim, Mayid, Nezikim. We do not know, well, Zeraim, Kachim, Taras. Some people that study the Yerushalmi, they know Zeraim. Kachim, Taras have each a Masechta that makes them famous, right? Kachim has Kulin, and Taras has Nida. What does Zeraim have? It's one of those that if you don't study the Yerushalmi, you don't know. What does it have? It has brachas. Many of the Rishonim, and Meiri included, point out, why is it that we are starting this limud of Shas, Zeraim, brachas? Is that the way necessarily the Rebbe should have included it? Maybe he wanted to give us some attention. We have a Gemara. The Gemara is going to deal with the only Gemara Bavli that we have. Maybe that's what we're starting it. Other Rishonim want to point out the following. Says the Meiri that we're starting out with brachas because of the fact that we're dealing with Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim. That's what Shema is. And we want to be able on a daily basis to take on the mantle of heaven, do it the morning and the evenings. Says the Meiri, we're starting out our Masechta, starting out our limud of Shas, Bavli, by understanding that all of this, the whole focal point of whatever we're doing, is to be Kabbalah Malchus Shemayim. That's the goal. Ultimately, not knowledge, not intellect, not philosophy. It's to be able to be closer to the bunch. That's why we're starting out with the Masechtas Brachos. Others point out that It's the first mitzvah that it applies to bar mitzvah boy. We don't do bar mitzvah me'es la'es. You do bar mitzvah from when the next day comes. He's in his 14th year. So that's when we start out with the Shema. We start out with the Shema because that's the first mitzvah that applies to each and every person as they become an adult. Either way, from when do we recite the Shema in the evening? And I should also note, what is the Meiri points this out, but I didn't learn the Meiri when I was 10 years old. I read a book by Chaim Potar called The Chosen. Maybe some people heard of it. Maybe some of you read it. Maybe some of you know what it's based on. None of that is really relevant for now. I would say that its origins are maybe somewhat interesting, and the writer was maybe somewhat not within the Orthodox world. Nevertheless, still a very fascinating book. And I remember reading in the book when I was 9 or 10 years old that he writes, he says the Meiri. What does he say? He says there is an assumption in this Mishnah. What is the Mishnah's assumption? The Gemara is going to point it out, but we don't know the Gemara yet. What is the Mishnah telling us? From when do you recite the Shema in the evening? What's the assumption? What's the Gemara? They have to recite the Shema. From where's the basis? From how do you know they have to recite the Shema? We're asking from when do you recite the Shema? How do you know you have to recite the Shema? The Gemara is going to ask the Kasha, but for our purposes now, as the Meiri points out, that's the basic assumption of this Mishnah, is that there is a requirement to say the Shema. So we're asking you, from when do you say the Shema? Come to the Sunday class in Torah Sheba'al Peh. We talked there about this year about Torah Sheba'al Peh, but that's not for now. Okay, and again, from when do you recite the Shema in the evening? What is the time that a person recites the Shema in the evening? From the time that the Kohanim come along to eat the Truma until the end of the first watch. This is the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Who's Rabbi Eliezer? Says the Siddur Adzeris, when they have Stam Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah, that is Rabbi Eliezer ben Horknez. Stam Rabbi Eliezer is Rabbi Eliezer ben Shemua. Stam Rabbi Eliezer in Shas, Rabbi Eliezer ben Ptas. So who's Rabbi Eliezer here in our Mishnah? Rabbi Eliezer ben Horknez is Zeicha to be the first man the Amar mentioned in the Mishnayos. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horknez, who unfortunately dies, as the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin, in Nido, he dies in being ostracized by the rabbis, because the whole Ma'aseh Gemara they have Tana Shel Achna. I'm not getting to that, but nevertheless, he is Zeicha to be the first man the Amar mentioned in Shas. They said, when do you have the ability to recite the Shema? Is until Chatzos. So what is clear from this Mishnah so far is that we have two opinions about when you can recite the Shema until the end of the first watch. We'll have to understand what the first watch means. We'll see that in the Gemara. The second opinion is the opinion of the Chacham, that you can recite the Shema until Chatzos. Gamliel says that you can recite the Shema until Amud Hashachar, meaning until dawn. One point to note in this Mishnah is that what it's not saying is that there is no machlekes at the inception of Shema. The machlekes is only at the conclusions of when you could say the Shema at night. According to Rabbi Lezer, it's until the end of the first Hashemera. According to Rabbi Gamliel, it's until Alish Hashachar. According to Chacham, it's the middle, like the three beers, right? They like to porridge different ways, right? So what is the shita of the Chacham? In the middle, Chatzos. But no one's arguing about when you can start saying Shema at night. Everybody seems to be agreeing that it's Mishah, that we will have to see tomorrow how simple that is. Continues the Mishnah. The children came along from the Beis HaMishnah. The Meiri adds, Beis HaMishnah Hayayin. Where does that come from? How do you know that? Esther, right? Right? Remember that. Asher Esther Olah. So they were coming from a party. We're not getting into why they were at parties at a different time. They told their father, they didn't say Shema. Obviously, they weren't partying the way we think about going to a party. Why? Because they came back from the party and they worried about Shema. What does it tell you? It's amazing. They came home late at night. And who was up? Waiting? Or Gamliel. Right. He's waiting. He's learning. So, he said, you have to say Shema. And it's not just that. Whatever the Chacham said is until Chatzos, really have a mitzvah until the dawn. When it comes to burning the fats and the limbs of karbonis, he says it's not just relation to Shema, they have mitzvah until Amud Hashachar. It applies to everything. The burning of the fats and the limbs you have until Amud Hashachar. You have whatever is eaten for a day, meaning the day and the night that follows. For that, you have until Amud Shachar. So why is it that we are saying until Chatzos? It's in order to keep people from Averis. As the Rambam writes in Hakdama to his Pirish HaMishnah, there are various different segments of Teresh Bapet. One of those segments is the laws, the decrees of Chazal. Chazal made various decrees in order to enable a person to stick to the straight and narrow. If a person, we're going to see later on in the Gemara, tells us, a person could sometimes come home at night, they're very tired, and they, they conk out, and they don't end up getting a chance to do what it was that they had a goal or their intention to do. In this situation, a person's going to come home at night, and he's going to say, time to Shema. Guess what? He's going to fall asleep. He's not going to wake up until already Amud Shachar happened, and he will have missed his moment. So there's the come to make sure you say it before Chatzos. That is the basic structure of our Mishnah. Says Rashi, that situation of Kanim. What happened with these Kanim? They were Tameh. And what did they do? They went and they were Taival themselves. And now the sun is set. We will see that means here is referring to Tzeis, and their time has now come to eat the Truma. The way you have to understand and imagine in the mind is the Kain. When he goes and is Mitar himself, so he has different periods. He has a period when he's allowed to eat mice. He has a period when he's allowed to eat truma. He has a period when he's allowed to eat kachim. And he has to bring a carbon. The carbon is not brought on that day when he's type. The carbon is brought the next day, on the 8th day. So at that time, what we're saying is that when this kain, he went to be toivel, and he has come out of the tefillah. And now we're talking about him not eating mice. We're talking about him eating truma. When is the time that a kain is allowed to eat truma? Kain eating mice, there's a different story, a whole connection about Bavel and Levim not returning and punishment for Levim. We're not getting into that now. For our purposes now, he had a kain. He was taivel from being tamei. The next day he has to bring a carbon. Nevertheless, there's a period today that he's able to eat truma. When? He's able to eat truma from days. According to the first opinion of Beleza, says you're allowed to eat you're allowed to say the Shema until the end of the first watch. Shlish halayla to third of the night, we're going to see in the Gimel Misham ve'elef avar zman d'leim b'krisu zman shchiva. At that point, after the first watch, meaning we're assuming for our purposes now that it's a 12-hour day, 12-hour night. So what does it mean? Shlish halayla, it's about 4 hours. You could divide it obviously differently. And obviously we don't live in equatorial Guinea, right? We don't live in a situation in the middle of the world. We're always changing what the times are of our day. Our days and nights are not the same. So for us, for our purposes now, we just should think about the idea that it's a third of the night. Why? Because the fundamental idea of Rabbi Lezer is, when do you say Shema? B'shach b'cha, when it's the Zman of Shchiva, when it's the Zman to go to sleep. When do people normally go to sleep? They normally go to sleep during the first third of the night. From the beginning to the end of the third of the night, that's when people normally go to bed. And that will be considered B'shach b'cha, that will be considered Zman Shchiva. V'loi karina b'shach b'cha, Makami hachi, nami las Zman Shchiva. And also before the evening has come, it's not considered Zman Shchiva. People don't go to sleep so early. Therefore, somebody who reads the Shema before then, he does not yotze his chiyuv in saying Shema. Imkain, says Rashi, Lo Mekarnas of Basic Nesses. Why do they read the Shema in the Basic Nesses? Rashi is making an assumption here that they used to daven Ma'ariv early, and they would say the Shema with the davening, so they're davening early. Remember, when it comes to Ma'ariv, it's not the same chiyuv as it is Shema. Shema has its time, and Ma'ariv has its time. For Ma'ariv, we know the Rehuda says that you could daven Mincha until Plag, and from then you could daven Ma'ariv. So they're davening Ma'ariv early. But what about Shema? Shema's from Tzeis. So what is going on that you're saying Shema when you're davening Ma'ariv? Ma'ariv is too early. It's too early for the Shema chiyuv. So what's Rashi explain? Says Rashi, in order to be able to daven, coming out of learning. This learns out of the Yerushalmi. This tells us that Rashi had access to the Yerushalmi, not just the Balei Tesis. We do find Rashi quotes the Yerushalmi significantly less than the Balei Tesis do. Nevertheless, you see Rashi quoting the Yerushalmi right here. Rashi adds in a very fundamental point. We'll see if we have a few minutes to be able to discuss it. What is that? That there is a chiyuv on all of us to be able to say the Shema once it actually gets dark. Says Rashi, what does that mean for practical purposes? When you say Kriyas Shema al Amita, you say the first parsha of Shema, you yotze the mitzvah zayin of Shema. We'll come back to this. Hopefully, we have a minute. You are allowed to say Shema Tzal Shachar according to Gamliel. Shekol correspond Shchiva. What's the machlekes between Gamliel and the Chachamim? The machlekes is in relation to what do we mean when we say b'shaf mecha? Do we mean when is the time that people go to sleep, or does it mean the time that people are actually sleeping? According to Rabbi Lezer, it means when people go to sleep. That means the first Ashmera, the first third of the night. According to Gamliel, no, it's not when a person goes to sleep. It's when a person is sleeping, which could be the whole night until Amud Hashachar. Says Rashi, mitzvahs and lahalis kol halayla. The mitzvah is to put up the fats and the ivarim all the night. They don't become pasulina that they have been left over. We're talking about the chayla from any carbon, but obviously a ivarim is not from any carbon. It's only from the carbon oil. Why is that? Because the oil is the only thing that's going to be burned the whole thing. But other carbonis is going to be given out to the kainim. You're allowed to eat parts of it, etc., etc. What do you mean the things that are eaten for a day? Meaning you from when you shecht it all the way until Amud Hashachar. You go in Chad Zashim Kishetzeres Minachos V'Toida. Mitzvahs and Zman Achilasan is Ad Sheyala Amud Hashachar. You have time to eat it until the daytime. Who may be on Liyos Neser Dechsev B'Toida Li'Nechman Ad Boiker. Kulam Mitoida Ilam Dena. We learn out all of the laws about being able to eat these karbanos until the Amud Hashachar are learned out from the Toida. Imkain, says Rashi, Lama Amr Chacham Ad Chatzos. So why is it that the rabbis made this gather? The Kriya Shema B'chilas Kachim. The rabbi said that you're only able to eat you're only able to say the Shema and eat the Kachim until Chatzos. In order to keep a person away from doing an Avera. The Asrum, the Achila, Kodim Zmana, they were asred up an Achila before the time. In order that it shouldn't come to a situation that a person would eat them after Alois, after Amud Hashachar, B'schayv Kares. Right? If you don't say Shema and the day passed and Nabachi lost the time, okay. You lost out of Mitzvah Daraisa, Mitzvah to say Shema. But it's just a bit of an assay. If you end up eating Kachim after the Amud Hashachar, that's big stuff. That's Kares. So because the repercussions are so severe, rabbis made together. Don't eat it after Chatzos. Continues Rashi, even though Kriya Shema doesn't have the same major consequence, you're not curse if you don't say Kriya Shema, nevertheless, to make a person have his rizah, he shouldn't say, I have so much time left. And in that way, the day would come, and then it would be too late for him. Rashi actually put notes that, listen, Heta Chalam Ve'Varm is actually not limited by Chatzos. It's not actually a thing. It could be in the entire night if you have a lot of stuff to burn. The reason it's actually put here is just to tell you that you always have the mitzvah the whole night whenever there's something that can be done at night. We also learn how to read the Megillah. These are the basic Rashis on the page. Continues the Gemara. There's some most of Rashis up. We're not going to be able to do them right now, but we have a limited amount of time. Says the Gemara, Tana Heichakar. As I said, the assumption of the Mishnah is being asked by the Gemara. In fact, the Gemara, Tana Heichakar, Tana Me'emasai. What was the basis of the fact that we are saying in our Mishnah, from when do you have a chiyuv to say the Shema at night? Where did the Gemara know that you have? Where did the Mishnah know? Says the Gemara that you had a chiyuv to say the Shema in the first place. V'su ma'ishna natani ba'ar v'spiration, listening to Shach v'spiration. Why are we saying that you have a chiyuv to say the Shema in our Mishnah from the evening time? Why aren't we starting with the morning time? What's the reason we're starting with the night first? Says the Gemara, Tana Akroika. We're going based upon Psukim, because the pasuk tells us we're saying Shema every day, in the evening and in the morning. And what does that mean in the evening and in the morning? It means that since we're starting on that pasuk, telling us that when is the time they say Shema from the evening first is written, then the Kumecha is written. So that answers two things. Number one, it answers us a chiyuv of why do we know that there's a chiyuv to say the Shema? Because it says in pasuk, Kumecha. And we also know why now. Why we say the evening first? Because it says the evening first in the pasuk. And the Mishnah is asking, when is that mitzvah of saying Shema? From when is it? It has the chiyuv starts from when the Canaan come along to eat their truma after they've already been toivel. Another answer to the Gemara is Yofim B'Yosef Shel Olam. We learn out from the creation of the world. Like we learn, Pasuk tells us that by the creation there was mentioned the evening and there was the morning and there was one day. This, of course, becomes a very massive controversy. The Rashbam famously says that maybe the day starts by not by night, but by the day, and by the sunrise, right? By Yer Vayvoker Yom Echad, right? By Yer Vayvoker, and was one day. One is one day after the end of the after the end of that full evening. Ibn Ezra wrote on the Holy Geras HaShabbos that impossible to say such a thing. We know Reb Sadigan says maybe it actually was that case until Matan Torah. This is not for our purposes now, other than to say that according to the second answer of the Gemara, Vayer Vayivarki Yom Echad means that it was an evening, it was a morning. You see that evening comes first. It doesn't answer the Chiyuv Bashma, has nothing to do with Shema. All the answer of the Gemara is saying why sometimes you talk about evening before you talk about the morning. Either way, says the Gemara, but we have another mission that's going to come up later. This mission is going to tell us that in the morning we're making two brachas and one bracha afterwards, and in the evening we're making two brachas before the Shema, two brachas afterwards. So listening to Arvis Bereisha, why are you saying over there in this mission the Shachmas first? You just told us that you say Meir first. Why? Either because of Shabbat, either because of Ve'er. Either way. Why in the next mission when you're talking about the brachas before and after the Shema? Why you start out talking about the brachas, the brachas of Shema of Shachmas? Talk about the brachas of Shema of Arvis. And that the Gemara says, Tana Pasach ba'Arvis v'Oder Tani b'Shachmas. We start out talking about Arvis in our mission here on Beis, and then we talked about Shachmas. Adikay b'Shachmas. So once we're already discussing Shachmas and the chiyuv when you say Shema and Shachmas, then we start talking about the brachas of Shema. So then Parash Mila de Shachmas. Then we're going to discuss the various things of Shachas, the Parash Mila the Arvis, and afterwards we will deal with coming back to Arvis again and the various brachas of Meir. Says Rashi, Tana Hechakoi, Mechakasalak, the Tana Beichoi Kriyashma. Where did our Tana know that there is a chiv of Kriyashma in the first place? It's Chaliso Kan Zmana Kriya that our Mishnah opened up by saying, well, when is the actual time to say the Shema? How did you know you have to say the Shema? So we learn out that the first answer, the more answers both questions. That Tana Akrokoy is going on the pasuk. The Sham Laman Chavis Akir. We learn out the Chavis Akir from a Shach, and we learn at the time that you say the night first. Another answer is Had the Tana Avim Bereisha Yolef Mibriasai. Second answer was that it doesn't talk about Shema, but it does tell us that you talk about the evening first. Later on, we will see that. Fine. This, I should just point out, is, and I forgot to mention it before, it's a bit of a sidebar to our topic, but we nevertheless need to mention, I see our time is short, but the Meiri, when he breaks down the Masechta, points out that this Masechta is broken basically into four parts. Right, the Meiri's whole approach to learning Shas is to learn Shas based upon the Mishnah. He's doing it different than the Rambam. Can't get into more now, other than to say like this: if you look at the various 9 prakim in brachas, you have the first ones, right, of Me'emasai, and you have Hayakaire, and you have Mishamesu, who's dealing with the Shema prayers. Then you have Yas HaShachar, you have Hayom, then you have that's dealing with Shemona Esrei. And then you have brachas, you have brachas Hanan, and you have situations like Shlosh Sha'achol, you have Ketzim Avarchin, right? You have Elu Devarim between Mesham and Hillel. Those are dealing with all the different types of brachas. And then you have the 9th parak, Parak Haraya, that deals with the other kinds of brachas that happen to people, not brachas and types of issues. Okay. So over here, the first few programs we're going to deal with are going to be fundamentally focused on Shema. Of course, sometimes with the way the Shas works, you see different bits and different pieces. You see it on every page. Tosfos points out the bottom Tosfos as well. Things that we say here, we sometimes say there. That's the beauty of why we learn Shas, because of the fact that it's not that it's convoluted, right? The Rambam at the Meiri points out, understood the Rambam literally in the Psicha, that he wanted to make it easier for you. Took away all the Havayas and all the Abayas and the Gemara, made it all simple. Just here's the apodictic law. We don't want just the apodictic law. We want to get into the thick of things. It's only through getting the thick of things that you're going to feel Yadas. Now, as I said, the first lucky man to Amar, to be mentioned in Shas, Blazer, Gamliel, brothers-in-law, actually, more tells Bamatzia, Ima Shalom, was the sister of Gamliel, was the wife of Rabbi Lazar. The Gemara we just did. Was anybody mentioned in our Gemara? Anybody mentioned in our Gemara? Nobody was mentioned in our Talmud. Tana, why did the Gemara open? Tana, nobody was mentioned. Who asked the kasha? This is known as the stam of the Talmud, the stam of Shas. Most of Shas. Certainly the Agarata is maybe a bit different, but within the halachic aspect of Shas, many times you'll find people who are not mentioned by name, and yet there's a lot being said. Who's saying it? Stam of the Talmud, not to forget about them, mostly written by the Rabbanan Savaroy, a long topic we're not going to get into now. They are mimasader our Gemara, giving us a back and forth to understand, to maybe be able to relate. The Gemara, they're building out the structure of our sugyas.
So when you say that to them, when Ravina or Pasha spoke to the mother, is Arab not included in that?
Good question. Good question. We'll get to Bamitzia and Peidal. We'll talk about it then. But yes, the Gemara does tell us in Bamitzia that they were Sefer Ra, and most likely means that the apodictic way that they brought down the halachas meant that a lot of these back and forths were not there. That is correct. That is a bit of a controversy, a bit of a controversial point for some, not a topic we can explore right now. Now, continues the Gemara. So the Gemara tells us as follows. Says the Gemara, we're bringing down what we just said, that when is it the time to say the Shema? When the Kohanim come along to eat the Truma, Michvi. When do the Kohanim come? When the Kohanim come along to eat the Truma, Mishah says like a Chavim. So it's listening, Mishah says like a Chavim. If the time of the Kohanim who are table and they're able to now eat is from Tes like a Chavim, then why do you just say Tes like a Chavim? Says the Gemara, no, Milsa Agav Kamashman. We wanted to tell you something unique, something interesting, something that you did not otherwise know. What is the Milsa Agav Kamashman? Kohanim imus ka'achli b'truma. When is it that the Kohanim are able to eat the truma? Mishah says like a chavim. The ha kamashma, that teaches you the kapar loy ma'akva. That teaches you that getting a kapar here in this case is referring to the carbon. That's not ma'akiv. Kedetanya bo Hashemesh v'tor. The pasuk tells us in Parshas Acharei Mos bo Hashemesh v'toher ve'achar yochal menakad Hashem ki lach moihu. What does it mean bo Hashemesh v'toher? That the sun is going to come and they're going to become tahar. What's the rest of the pasuk? Ve'achar yochal menakad Hashem, and then they're able to eat from kachim. Are we talking about kachim right now? No, we're talking about truma. Nevertheless, we have to think about that a little bit. Ki lachma, because they're bread. What is lechem here? We're talking about kachim. Okay, all that put on the side for the moment. The Gemara is telling us, we are teaching you now something, agavorcha. The Mishnah is telling you that when is the time that you're able to say the Shema, when the Kohanim are coming along to eat the truma. When is that time? Tzeis. So just say tzeis. Why are you telling me that it's from the time when the Kohanim are coming to eat their truma? What is this? No, there was a reason for it. It's teaching you a new thing. What is the new thing? The new thing is that they do not have to wait till the next day to bring their carbon in order to be able to eat truma. They can bring the carbon the next day, but already now they can eat the truma. The pasuk tells us that the sun will set. The sun is going to set. And the day is gone, and then they are able to eat the truma. The sun setting is going to be me'akev the ability to eat the truma. But the actual bringing of the carbon is not going to be me'akev in eating the truma. This is the milsa agav orcha. This is the other thing that we are learning about. How do we know that this idea of the sun setting, the day going away, is the reference what the pasuk is teaching us? Maybe what it means is the sun is actually rising, and what we're saying is the person has to actually become tar. How is he going to become tar? He's going to become tar by going to bring his carbon. That the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Bar Shila says, and the pasuk should have said v'itar, that he has to go and make himself tar. How does he go and make himself tar? By going to bring the carbon. What does it mean that it's being in passive, not in an active type of a lashon? The idea is tar yom. It's going on the person is going on the day. Is going on the day. The day is sun is set. The day is gone. As the people say, the sun has set and the day is gone. Says Rashi. Misha said to Kamshu Gemar Bias Shamish. That is the end of the day. The day has set. We learn out. I don't know if you have it on your Rashi. Is the kapar le ma'akva? What does it mean that the kapar is not ma'akiv? Says Rashi, two mosers just haras atulya b'carbon. right? The tuma, where the tyra of this person is totally in a carbon. It's on the side of the page if you have it in your Gemaras. You're going zav and zav v'yoledet some tzera in kapras makvasan elam mishabar shemesh leleel sheyavi carbon l'machas miyad mutal ech b'chuma. The person is able to eat the chuma from that day when he has been toivel, and he has to bring a carbon on the next morning. We're talking about achilas truma. That is our focus. Right? He has toivel. He's able to eat the meiser. After that, when the sun sets, he's able to eat truma. And in the next morning, heavy kaparasa is oichel b'kodshim. Via shemesh shkias achama. V'hai v'tzir tar yoma. What's going on the day is going away. V'hachi amakro. V'chshatishka achama. When the sun is gone, the yifne hayom. And the day is turned v'tir min toichel shel olam. Whatever that means science-wise, the sun is now gone. Sheshakol agamri. It's finished. The That is the idea that a person is now going to be able to eat kachim. Remember, when he's toivel, he's able to eat meiser. After the sunset, he's able to eat truma. The next morning, he brings in carbon, he's able to eat kachim. That is what V'ar Shemesh V'Torah is going on the day. V'ar Shemesh, the day is gone, and V'Torah, the person is now tohar. How he's not fully tohar? Yeah, it does mean tohar in the sense that he's able to eat kachim. Again, is that to the pshat of the pasuk? I'm not getting into that right now, other than say this: we have the ability to exegetically understand psukim, even if it's not exactly the way the pshat of the pasuk reads. Whether the Rishonim and Achronim do it, that's a different story. Most famously, the Ibn Ezra, the beginning of Parashat Mishpatim, you look at it there. Look at the Orchaim in a number of places. Agrees with the Ibn Ezra that the limits of an exegete, the limits of a mefarish on Chumash are. You can only explain the Gemara. You can only explain the Psukim in accordance with a halach. However, if it's not halachically related, then you can explain the Psukim any way you want, even if it's not in consonance with the various midrash Chazal. Continues Rashi. What does it mean in relation to the sun setting? That the day will come in the morning on the 8th day. He'll go bring carbonates, and then he will be able to eat. So if so, that the day means that it was gone, so then it's a lashon sivoy. He has to go bring a carbon. If it's going on the person, then he has to go and bring a carbon for himself in order to be able to now be eating. So then it should say v'yitoher, my v'toher. So what does it mean? It's adki lashon avar nispana mena ilam hashemesh. The day is gone. Mi briasa. We're going to see that in the mi brisa. That's the next Gemara. I will conclude with two things. We have a couple of seconds, a couple minutes left. Number one, who's the first Amir Zechen Shas to be mentioned? Is Rabbi Bar Shila. Anybody know him? No, you've never heard of him. He's not such a famous person, but you should know that Rabbi Bar Shila was a student of Rav Chizda, and I do wonder if perhaps the reason he's mentioned in as the first Madam and Shas is because he's the one who's matzdik Rabbi Meir. And what tells Chagiga Tezvav that Rabbi Bernstein was talking about various different people in learning, quoting this one down, but he wouldn't quote Rabbi Meir. Why? Because he learned from Acher. Says Rabbi Bar Shila, when he met Eliyahu, he said to him about Rabbi Meir, he was able to learn from Acher and just get the good fruit, not the husk, not the bad parts. But then the Gemara says that the Bernstein has the work. Rabbi Yochanan started quoting from Rabbi Meir. Maybe Rabbi Bar Shila has brought us the first Amar in Shas, but understand that sometimes we say things that are not necessarily always the best. Nevertheless, try to focus on getting out the fruit and not worry about the other things. What we haven't done yet, and I don't know that we have the time today, we will have to focus on it tomorrow, a little bit at least, is to be able to get into the sugya of saying the Shema early. As I said, conclude with one quick word on the Chumash. Parsha begins with Lech Lecha. Look at Rashi. Rashi says that Abraham's journey starts with Lech Lecha. The journey for your own benefit. Don't go. We're not Muslims. We're not going to do everything for God. The reason you should be Jewish, the reason you should be observant and excited about it, it's for yourself. Because it's the best thing for you. Hashem says to Abraham at the beginning of the journey, don't go for me. Lech lecha, go for yourself. Go on this whole journey for your life, the Jewish journey, the Abrahamic journey. We've taken 3,500 years because the best thing for us. Have a wonderful day.